What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Severe MMA podcast. And today we're joined by Michael Bisping from BT Sports, where you can watch UFC 264 this weekend on pay-per-view to preview that card and talk about Conor McGregor versus Dustin Poirier. Michael, thank you very much for joining me. I really appreciate it. Are you looking forward to the fights this weekend?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I just finished my workout. I'll be jumping on a plane to Vegas in a few hours. And whilst all the pay-per-views this year have just been unbelievable, this is going to steal the show. One of the biggest fights of the year, a lot of implications, a lot of ramifications, and it's going to be insane.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward. I think one of the biggest things coming in, the first question I really wanted to ask you was, a lot of people are talking about what Conor McGregor will show up before the fight. You know, what smack talk will be said on Wednesday and Thursday at the media days. And, you know, you were one of the best ever at it. If you were in Conor McGregor's shoes, what would you be saying this week? What would your tactics be, I suppose, going into the smack talk realm?
Well, I think we've seen a taste of it already. I think McGregor's already talking a bit of smack online. You know, I think we've seen hints of it. And I think he's going to go back to the old scathing, cutting Conor McGregor that's going to, you know, he's not going to be polite and gentlemanly up there. Yeah. I don't think so. You know, I think in his mind, maybe he thinks maybe that didn't work out for me last time, whatever. Also, with the fans back in the building, McGregor plays up to that. You know, there's no fight week like a McGregor fight week is the reality of it, you know. No doubt the Irish are going to be there in big numbers. Within the country, you know, there's a massive Irish contingency in America. I'm not sure if the borders are open yet, but still, McGregor plays up to the crowd. You know, there's going to be a press conference on Thursday, and I guarantee he's going to try and verbally annihilate Dustin Poirier.
You were one of those guys, I think, who really got it, that it's about fighting and it's about winning and everything like that, but it's about talking outside of it as well. You know, there's a fight inside and a fight outside. And I think, like, do you think McGregor kind of gave that up a little bit in the last one and didn't kind of go to mental warfare with Dustin Poirier, and it'll be a change this time?
Yeah, I think in the last fight, McGregor was so convinced that he was the better fighter that he thought, I don't need to do any of that, you know. And then maybe there's an element of maturity there. You know, maybe there was an element that, you know, obviously beating Dustin before and beating very easily, and he just beating Cowboy Cerrone as well. So he just thought, maybe I'm one step ahead of these guys. Maybe he got a little complacent. Who knows, you know? But that's all going to be out the window now, because there's a lot on the line here for McGregor. Listen, of course, the man's extremely wealthy. He became a two-weight division champion. That can never be taken away from him. His legacy is set in stone. But right now, in the world, in combat sports, you're only as good as your last fight. And his last fight, he was left unconscious on the canvas. And we all know that matters to McGregor just as much as his bank account. You know, his fighting pride, his legacy, all the rest of it. He wants to go out there and he wants to be the better man. Mm-hmm. And, you know, title fights, all the rest of it, that's all well and good, but this is man against man. You know, there's pride at stake here for McGregor. Mm-hmm. And he's a very proud man. He wants to be the best fighter on the planet. And to be that, to achieve that status, which he once had, he has to beat Dustin Poirier. So, you know, I think we're already seeing a little bit of it. He's talking a lot of smack. He put something on Twitter this morning, you know, and I think we're going to see the old McGregor that talks a lot of shit, puts on quite a show, and is nasty in the fight.
I'm looking forward to seeing it. You mentioned there about him getting knocked out, and I think back to you after the second Dan Henderson fight, and talking about how you had kind of mental demons coming into that second fight because of, you know, naturally what happened in the first fight. Conor McGregor, this is the first time he's ever been knocked out. You know, he's been finished before but submitted. Do you think he'll be having some of the same mental demons coming in here? And how did you deal with him, and how do you think he will deal with them coming in here?
Yeah, well, obviously, I mean, I've talked about this at length, but yeah, I got knocked out against Dan Henderson. Next time, you know, it wasn't until I was in the arena that I realized, you know, that I was kind of nervous, because in my mind, last time I stepped in an octagon with this person, I got put to sleep and the world laughed at me. You know, so that does bring a lot of demons, as you say. And McGregor's never been in this position before, and I don't even think he'll realize what it will do to him. Now, McGregor's very confident. He believes in himself. He's very brash, and I don't think it's an act. That's the way he carries himself. So maybe it won't affect him at all. But maybe when he gets in the locker room and he hears the crowd, the yous and the ahs, and people are getting knocked out, and you're in your locker room and people going by on stretchers, you know, and the ambulances and the stitching fighters up and things like that. Maybe, just maybe, that might creep into him. Like, oh crap, here we are again. Maybe I should have taken a warm-up fight. Maybe I should have, you know, gone to some sports therapy or sports psychologist or whatever. I don't know. Maybe it won't matter at all. Only McGregor can answer those questions. But the reality is, you got to give him his due. You got to give him his credit. It takes a lot of balls to do what he's doing, to get knocked out and step right back in there without a tune-up fight. But I do think for those reasons, it does give Poirier an advantage.
I think it's a very interesting one. I was speaking to Dan Hardy earlier on, and we were talking about kind of the tactics of the fight, and for say like a fast twitch round one fighter, let's say, which Conor McGregor has been in the past, comes out and tries to land the big shots early, adjusting to be, say, from a 3-round fighter, 1-round fighter to a 5-round fighter, and what it takes. But I want to look kind of at the other side of it. You fought lots of guys like that. We mentioned Dan Henderson, Vitor Belfort, other guys like that. When you're fighting guys like that, what is the approach? Like, is it just to weather the early storm, maybe try not to take their best shot, bring them into deep waters and kind of tire them out?
Yeah, I mean, ideally, if you can do that against a guy like a McGregor or a Vitor Belfort or those type of people that do typically tire as the fight goes on, yeah, that's always the strategy. Listen, there's no shame in saying, I'll say it, McGregor is a round 1, round 2 type of fighter. You get him out of those rounds and the tide turns dramatically. But that's just his makeup. That's who he is. You can't be a sprinter and a marathon runner at the same time. The body just doesn't work like that. So if you're Dustin Poirier, yeah, you want to clinch. You want to take him down. You want to make him grapple up against the fence, fight for underhooks, things like that. Fill the body with oxygen. Fill it with blood, and tire him out. Work the lungs as well as the muscular systems and tire him out, And because we saw even in the second round, McGregor did land some shots, but the pop wasn't there like it was in the first round, So certainly if you're Poirier, you want to clinch, you want to take him down, you want to kick the legs. You want to keep him guessing. That's another thing, another edge that Poirier has in this one. I do believe he is the better rounded mixed martial artist. Yes, McGregor's got good jiu-jitsu. Of course, he knows how to wrestle and can defend the takedown, but typically he's a striker. Poirier can have a multifaceted approach, and that's going to keep McGregor guessing. He's going to think, is he going to shoot? Is he going to kick my calves? Is he going to punch me in the face? What angle is he going to attack me from? On the flip side, to counter that, McGregor can just go forward and say, I'm not going to give you a chance to plan anything because I'm just going to attack you right from the opening bell and I'm going to look to put you out unconscious within 2 minutes. And who knows, he might do that. McGregor certainly has the ability. But there's a risk reward because if he goes out there and tries to do that and doesn't do it, then he's emptied the tank and he's a sitting duck. So it's a fascinating fight.
I think that's probably one of the most interesting parts. Like, I think, like, looking at McGregor and the first fight versus the second fight earlier in his career, the amount of movement, the amount of different things he did, and then he got kind of very tired in the first Diaz fight, whether it was a function of that and the change of style or whether it was just like falling in love with boxing. I think it's a very interesting thing to look at and what he does here coming in at the weekend. But you mentioned jiu-jitsu and wrestling there. Obviously, you're someone coming from England and Conor McGregor from Ireland. It feels like anyone on this side of the world is kind of looked at, unless you're from maybe Russia or somewhere like that, as if they can't wrestle and they know jiu-jitsu. We saw McGregor in the first round of that fight. He did pretty well against Poirier. He got his arse to the cage, got his back to the cage and got straight back up. How do you rate McGregor's jiu-jitsu and his wrestling? Is that a thing that you kind of had to get past as well in your career? People just talking nonsense really a lot of the time about their ability there.
No, McGregor has a good ground game. Mm-hmm. He really does. I mean, I'm trying to think of some specific examples where he showed some good
Holloway
stuff.
Fight and Nate Diaz.
The Holloway fight, the Nate Diaz fight. I think he hit a sweep, but he got taken down. Mm-hmm. Listen, to think that he's not preparing for these circumstances or these scenarios is just stupid. He is, and you can see he has a good ground game. And if you look at Khabib in that first round when Khabib was trying to take him down, he did a very, very good job of fighting off that takedown. The thing about takedowns that makes him really successful is when you surprise your opponent. I think against Khabib, he knew he was going to shoot, so he was waiting for it. Against Poirier, if you boom, you come upstairs with the hands come up to defend, and then you shoot. It's mixing things up, the surprise element that really catches people off guard. So, but that said, McGregor typically uses his jiu-jitsu and his wrestling defensively, kind of like myself. I was a black belt in Brazilian jiu-jitsu, Japanese jiu-jitsu, brown belt in Brazilian. I knew how to grapple, but I never used it offensively because I was a striker by nature. I think it would be a good idea for McGregor to go out there and try and mix things up, maybe surprise Poirier, shoot a takedown. You never know. I think the element of surprise for both guys will be a huge advantage.
I really can't wait for it. Michael, I appreciate the time. One last thing before we go. I have to ask you
Please.
about it. I'm a big fan of like the judging criteria. I talked to lots of judges. I've done different videos and stuff on it. And I feel like your commentary has improved an awful lot over the last while because you've just done that, read the judging criteria and made a kind of a point of it. Is that something you've done? Did you have someone sit you down and kind of tell you about that? Because I feel like that is something that's, to me, watching it, has been really clear in your commentary over the last while. Just what have your thoughts been, I suppose, on the criteria and your newfound kind of love for it, I suppose, over the last while?
Oh, yeah. Well, thank you very much. No, I mean, listen, I am very blessed to have the job that I do. As a former fighter, you couldn't have a better job than to be a commentator for the UFC, the greatest organization in the world. So I take it very seriously. I do a lot of research, and I'm very lucky. The producers there, they're always giving us a lot of information. And if there's ever anything that we need to read, the rule books and things like that, the rules are always changing. That's the hard part in the States, regardless. I mean, depends what state you're in, and the rules are a little bit different. So you always want to be up to date on that, and the judging criteria, that's often changing. You know, like one thing seems to be a contentious point these days is the 10-8. You know, 10-8 used to be a lot less frequent. You know, you wouldn't see him as much. But now a 10-9 is when it's really close, but then one kind of edges it. When it's a dominant round, that's a 10-8. The old school 10-8s, that's now a 10-7. And I think a lot of people don't realize that, you know. So it's something that people need to take into consideration when they're scoring fights at home. But yeah, listen, I love my job. I'm very passionate about what I do. And don't tell the UFC, but I'll probably do it for free.
Yeah, I'd say there's a lot of people who do that. I get the 3Ds mentioned on the commentary at some time as well with the 10-8 with the judging criteria.
Nice,
Michael,
nice.
I really appreciate the time today. I really appreciate BT Sports as well. Look forward to the fight this weekend. BT Sports box office. Michael, thank you very much.
My pleasure. Take care, buddy.